I know it is still Crocktober, but we are going to take a brief hiatus from slow cooker recipes for this video to talk about a similar category, casseroles. I say similar because I feel like casseroles are also budget friendly, family friendly, and convenient. They're just sort of the quicker cooking cousins to crockpot recipes. My son's school is having a luncheon tomorrow in appreciation for the teachers, and since I make food for a living, why sign up to bring one casserole when I can sign up to bring two? So I'm gonna prepare a French onion casserole tomorrow morning. We'll get to that in a minute, but today I'm actually gonna prep this $1 million chicken casserole from Plain Chicken. I'll leave the original recipe linked in the description box below because I'm thinking that I can prep it in my casserole crock pot and then just drop it into my slow cooker tomorrow morning to heat up in time for the luncheon. This recipe calls for cream of chicken, and I'm going to make it from scratch. So I have 1 cup of broth and 1 cup of milk that I am putting into my pot. And I'm gonna whisk in 3 tablespoons of cornstarch, turning my heat on to medium low, and I'm just gonna keep whisking that until it starts to thicken up. I make my chicken broth from bouillon, and I've actually learned to do it using the coffee maker because there's an 8-ounce setting. So I can just put a little bit of the better than bouillon into the cup and then choose 8 ounces of hot water, and it'll make me 1 cup of chicken. But I wanted a little bit more liquid for this because I am adding 2 cups of cooked rice to this recipe, and it's not called for in the original recipe. I'm just doing that to kind of stretch it a little bit. While I'm waiting on my cream soup to thicken, I'm gonna go ahead and season this with about ½ a teaspoon of onion powder, ½ a teaspoon of garlic powder, salt to taste, pepper to taste. Once this starts to thicken, it will thicken really quickly. So you wanna kind of stay right with it once you get that heat just right that it's thickening up. And now I'm adding 4 ounces, which is ½ a block of cream cheese. I wanna go ahead and add it to the cream soup so that it will soften and get incorporated into the recipe a little bit easier. Once this is, oops, oh no. Oh well, I can use a spoon now. Man down! Once this cream cheese is melted and incorporated into the cream soup, I'll take this off the heat and we'll add the rest of the ingredients for the casserole. This recipe does not call for it, but I cooked up 1 cup of rice, and 1 cup dry of rice makes, you know, around 2½ cups or so. Probably won't use all of this. I want it to be right around 2 cups of cooked rice, just enough to sort of stretch it a little bit. And it also calls for ½ a cup of sour cream, 1 cup of cottage cheese, and 4 cups of cooked chicken. I actually just bought this rotisserie chicken already pulled off the bone from Aldi. It's about $7 for a pound of it. Boop. Okay, I changed my mind. I am gonna use all the rice because I think there's plenty of liquid in here to incorporate all that rice. Yay. Now, all I have to do is stir this all together. I'm gonna pour it into the crock for my casserole crock pot. I'm gonna cover it and put it in the refrigerator, and then we're gonna finish it up tomorrow morning when I plan to start reheating it for the luncheon. I am getting this $1 million chicken casserole going in the slow cooker, the casserole slow cooker, to heat up today for the luncheon. So now I'm just going to top this with the topping made from a sleeve of crushed Ritz crackers and 5 tablespoons of butter all mixed together. You're just supposed to spread that evenly out over the top. And then I'll pop the lid on this. I'm actually gonna heat it up on high for a little while, see if I can bring it up to temperature pretty quickly, and then I'll switch it over to warm so that I can take it over to the school. Most of us probably have some kind of chicken and rice dish in our recipe repertoire, right? I feel like it's that quintessential casserole. It's sort of that go-to comfort food, feed a crowd food, like tried and true family-friendly casserole. But if you are looking for some other, not your typical chicken and rice dishes, like the one I just shared, I actually made a video about 1.5 years ago just about chicken and rice. And I shared 3 different recipes. One of them was a garlic parmesan chicken and rice. One of them was a recipe that utilized cauliflower rice instead of regular rice. And then another one was a buffalo chicken and rice that was really tasty. So I will leave that video linked in the description box below if you want some more casserole ideas along those lines. I want to take a minute to thank today's sponsor, Fabric by Gerber Life. I am a wife and a mom to 3 children, and I really don't like to dwell on what would happen if I wasn't here to take care of them. But if we're being, you know, responsible caregivers, we really need to secure our family's financial future if the unthinkable happens and we suddenly aren't here to care for them. So that's why having good quality term life insurance is really important, and that's where Fabric can help out. Fabric was designed by parents for parents to help you get high quality, surprisingly affordable term life insurance policies in less than 10 minutes. I've mentioned before when working with fabric that my husband and I were really impressed with the ability to create a simple, legally binding will with fabric. But recently, since my husband resigned from his position and he is currently applying for other jobs and also revving up his consulting business, I am the primary breadwinner for the family. So we thought that it would be a good idea to check into other life insurance options for me. With fabric, you could get a personalized quote in just minutes and then go back and finish your application later on when it's convenient for you. Super easy because it's all online. They have a 30-day money-back guarantee. You can cancel at any time. Plus, there's no risk to apply. And you could go from start to covered in less than 10 minutes, possibly without even a health exam required. To check out fabric and possibly join the thousands of parents who trust fabric to protect their family's futures, you can visit the link in the description box below, or you can go to meetfabric.com/cmindymom. That's meetfabric, M-E-E-T fabric.com/cmindymom. And thank you again to Fabric for sponsoring today's video. I am getting this French onion beef casserole together. It's from a website called Burley's Kitchen. I'll leave it linked in the description box below, and it's going to come together super fast. While I am browning this pound of ground beef, I also have a pound of egg noodles cooking on the stove next to me. I'm just going to cook those to al dente. I don't want them to quite finish cooking. After I'm done browning the ground beef, I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce, 1 can of cream of mushroom soup, and 1 16-ounce container of refrigerated French onion dip. I'm also going to add just a smidge of milk to thin it out just a little bit. After I stir the noodles into this, I'm going to pour it into a 9x13 pan. I'm using a disposable one since I'm taking it to a luncheon. The recipe calls for Gruyere, which is a little bit pricey, and I am going to use the Gruyere. I got a 7-ounce block for around $7 at Walmart, but I thought about using Gouda or Swiss instead as a less expensive option. That is going to be in the oven at 350. The directions say to bake it for around 15 minutes. It might take 20 to 25 for mine to heat through since I'm using more noodles than the casserole calls for. And the last couple of minutes of baking, you top it with a package of French fried onions and just let it bake with the onions for another couple of minutes to crisp up. I'm about to head over to drop everything at the school, but I set aside just a little of this French onion casserole to try because I'm really curious. I mean, it looks and smells fantastic. That's really good and so easy. I mean, I put that together in like less than 10 minutes once the noodles were cooked. Ooh, that's really good. Yum. So last weekend was the OU Texas game. Boomer Sooner. And the OU Texas game is held every year during the Texas State Fair at the Cotton Bowl. And it got my husband and I to talking about the fact that I have actually never been to the fair. I've never been to the Oklahoma State Fair, which is in Oklahoma City, where I lived for 35 years. I've never been to the Texas State Fair. I've never been to the Tulsa State Fair. But I do have this Oklahoma State Fair cookbook for some reason in my collection of cookbooks. And I got to flipping through this, and probably about 80% of it is desserts like candies, breads, cakes, cookies, salads that are really just a bunch of desserts. There is one tiny little section for entrees in this recipe book, and it must have been some sort of special category to use Spam because there are an inordinate number of Spam related recipes in this cookbook. Hot Spam dip. Spam's best stovetop casserole ever. Spamal zones, whatever that is. Sweet Spam surprise. Spam-tastic turkey loaf. Turkey Spam puff pocket sandwich. Raise the roof turkey Spam cups. I mean, it goes on and on. I don't plan to do any recipes with Spam in this video, but I'm wondering if Hormel chili was like a sponsor this year because there's a bunch of recipes using Hormel chili as well, and that did inspire my next casserole recipe. I am going to attempt sort of a chili cheese baked ravioli, and one of the reasons I wanted to try this is because I make chili a lot in the winter and I make it in big batches. There are always leftover bowls of chili to use up, and I'm wondering if this would be a good use for leftover chili. I am going to use canned chili tonight because I haven't made any yet this season, but if it turns out well, I'm thinking it would work with like homemade chili that we have left over. In my bowl here, I have 1 can of prepared chili. I bought the no beans kind, but you could definitely use one with beans. I think it would work just fine. And I also have about 1/4 to 1/3 of a cup of water in there. After I add that to the bowl, I'm gonna add 1 can of Rotel, diced tomatoes with green chilies, And I'm also gonna stir in probably about half a cup of sour cream. I don't know, we'll measure with the heart. We're sort of flying by the seat of our pants here. I'm just gonna stir this all together and then I'm gonna pour it over my ravioli, which I put into a greased casserole dish. It's just a 25-ounce bag of ravioli. It's still frozen, not worried about it. It's gonna bake up nicely in the oven. I'm also gonna top it with a layer of cheddar cheese, and I think I'll cover it with foil and put it in the oven for about 30 minutes and check on it, see how much longer it needs. Another really great pasta casserole that is like a throw and go, just dump it all in the casserole dish and then bake it up, is this meatball marinara that I shared while we were on our trip to New Mexico. So I will leave that one linked in the description box below just in case you missed it. When I was a kid and my mom would make pot roast, traditionally she would serve it with potatoes and carrots that she made along with the pot roast, but occasionally she would make this baked barley recipe to go along with it from my Grammy. And I actually have a recipe card of my Grammys where she typed out the recipe, and I used to devour this as a child. It was one of my favorite things to eat. I thought I would use this recipe today as sort of a jumping off point to create a casserole that can stand on its own as a main dish. It would also still serve as a great side dish or a really great offering for a potluck. I find barley in my grocery store where the rice is, and I can pretty much just find the one brand anymore from Quaker, and it's the quick cooking barley, which is not what my Grammy would have used originally, but I find that it works just fine in this recipe. But you can also substitute rice. You might just need to tweak the liquid amounts in the recipe according to the kind and the amount of rice that you use. Also, if you want to sub out the butter for a dairy-free or a plant-based butter, I believe you can make this recipe dairy-free, and I'm often getting requests for recipes that don't involve cream or cheese or sour cream or milk, and I think you can adapt this one to fit that bill. I chopped up a couple of medium carrots, 2 stalks of celery, and about half an onion, and I have my mirepoix sauteing now with 1 pound of ground beef. And I'm just gonna saute that until the ground beef is cooked and until the veggies are starting to soften a little bit. I don't need them to saute completely or to cook completely because we're gonna add more stuff and then pop this into the oven later, but I just wanna kind of soften them and flavor them. Now that my beef is cooked, I'm going to add 4 tablespoons of butter, stir that around and help it melt just a little bit, and 2 cups of barley. I'm gonna stir that around and just let the barley brown a little bit along with the butter and the veggies and the meat. This would also be a great way to use up barley if you have it in your pantry, because I know a lot of soup recipes call for it. And when I see it in soup recipes, it's often in small amounts, like a 1/4 cup or a 1/2 cup, and you can end up with that box or that bag of barley in your pantry for a really long time. So give this casserole a try. I am using an oven-safe skillet, but if you wanted to put this into a casserole dish, now would be the time, because the only thing left to add now are 2 cans of beef consomme. And beef consomme is not the same as beef broth, but I do find it with the soups, and I really only find it in the Campbell's brand, but it looks like that. And I'm also gonna add just a 1/2 cup of water. Salt and pepper to taste, but I go easy on the salt because the consomme is very salty, so it's gonna add a lot of flavor to the dish. Now I'm just going to pop the lid on this, cover it, and put it into a 350-degree oven. Now Grammy's recipe says to bake this for an hour, but since I'm using quick cooking barley, I'm going to check on it after about 30 minutes and see where we are. Also, if you wanted to stretch this a little bit more, you could add an extra cup of barley and an extra can of consomme if you wanted to make it serve more people. I'm just making it for my family of 5, so this should be plenty for us. Mine took 45 minutes total to cook, and I'm telling you, this is fantastic. It's so simple, but it makes me so nostalgic. It takes me right back to my childhood and heating up big bowls of this barley left over from the roast beef dinner, but just putting the veggies and the meat in it, making it a complete meal. I'm telling you, if you like barley, or you think you might, you should give this one a try. Leave me a comment below and let me know if you intend to try one of these recipes or pick out one of these videos to watch next for more family kitchen inspiration.